Be bold. Be heard. Welcome to Unmute Your Mic with your host, Jessica Bell. The views, information, or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Unmute Your Mic.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unmute Your Mic. My name is Jessica Bell. I am your host from Kansas City, Missouri. If this is your first time tuning in, I want to say thank you for watching this episode of Unmute Your Mic. If you are a return listener, thank you so much for being a part of the Unmute Your Mic family. As always, before we get started, please make sure to like, subscribe, and follow on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. It would mean so much that we continue to get exposure to this amazing platform. I'm so excited for my guest today. Her name is Amber, and I'm excited to hear her story, get to know her a little bit better. Amber, if you could just introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about you.
Well, good morning. Thank you again for having me, Jessica. My name is Amber Walker Hoopengarner-Adderley. I am in Pittsburgh, PA, well, small town east of Pittsburgh, but it's very small. I'm 36. I have a husband of 11 years and 6 children. And I currently am a life coach working with women who have PMADS or perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, and also children with mental health illnesses. I'm very passionate about working with both of those groups. And also I'm an avid member of the church. And so I'm working to help raise awareness about mental health within the church community, because it's still something that's still so stigmatized, and people still have such a negative view of it and a negative perspective. So it's part of my passion. I personally went through postpartum with 3 of my 4 children, 3 of my 4 pregnancies. And I also have family members who suffer, from mental health disorders. A couple of my children actually have different diagnoses. And so it's something I'm just very, very passionate about. I really want to change the way that the church especially looks at people with mental health disorders. We're very quick in the church to take a medicine for a diabetes or, for a heart attack or, to get a surgery for this or to get a surgery for that. But when it comes to the brain and the disorders of the brain, we seem to struggle, I guess, because it's something we can't see. And, automatically it's a demon attack or you're being punished or, things of that nature. When in reality, the brain is a muscle like anything else, like the rest of your body. And sometimes it gets unbalanced. Chemicals change and things like that. And so, I really just want to help raise awareness about that, especially for the mothers. It's very hard. Postpartum depression. I had postpartum depression and postpartum OCD. And I had severe postpartum OCD where I actually had thoughts of killing my children. And I knew they were wrong. And so it was terrifying to have those thoughts. But at the same time, I didn't know that, 1, many women go through it. And 2, there is help out there. This was 14 years ago now that I had my first son, my first biological son. And I just remember having thoughts of, drowning him in the bathtub, throwing him out the window, all the sharp items, I would hide them in my house because I just was terrified that I was going to hurt him, which made it hard to be a good mom because then I didn't want to get near him, And so then with my second one, I had the same problems. I had tried medicine, but they didn't really seem to work for me. They made me tired or just really out of it. And I was a single mom at the time with 2 babies. One was 1 and one was about 5 months. So, both babies and, which is like twins. I don't know that the twins are any harder than that, 13 months apart. But, so, I knew that medicine wasn't going to be something that I could do if it was going to cause me to be out of it. And so for me, it was the Bible and prayer was really, just got me through it, just relying on God and calling out the name of Jesus. Therapy wasn't something that was really talked about in my family. And so, what happens in this house stays in this house. And Don't tell your business to people, especially not strangers. So therapy wasn't something that I even considered at the time because of that upbringing. But now I'm 36 and I actually have anxiety. And it's funny because I found out that I have like an 80-year-old aunt who has anxiety, and I've had, other family members. So it's definitely, I think, generational. And I'm on an antidepressant for that. And I'm okay with that. It took me a while to get there. I've had fibromyalgia for 11 years, and I've struggled with the anxiety throughout that time. And it took up until last year for me to finally be like, okay, I'll try something, because I just was so, I don't know, I felt so defeated by admitting that, I needed the help of a medication. And some, a couple of our children actually take a medication as well. And I didn't, it was hard to put them on it as well, because as a mother, that's not something you want to do. But if it ultimately helps them, it doesn't have to be forever. It can be for a season. And if it's ultimately going to help them to get to their best self, then that's what it's all about, and God understands that. And so I just want to help, raise the awareness. Like I said, within the church, medicine is okay. Therapy is okay. Prayer, scripture, of course, these things are necessary, but combine them all, make it a holistic approach. And, the healing will be so much better, so much quicker, so much more peaceful. You won't have people walking around feeling ashamed and condemned as they sit in your church because they feel like they should just keep praying and keep trusting, and that they're weak, or that their faith isn't where it should be if they do take a medicine. And so, yeah.
Wow. So first of all, thank you for sharing that. It was very transparent. And so you brought up a lot of really good points that I kind of want to touch on individually. So the first one being, for people who have never heard of maybe postpartum, can you just go in a little bit deeper as to what that is, and kind of what your experience was like? I know you touched on that a little bit, but some listeners may not have ever experienced, or they may currently be going through it and they haven't been able to put a name to what it is that they're feeling.
Absolutely. So postpartum, there's a couple of different disorders that fall under. So PMADS is the umbrella term for the postpartum disorders. There's postpartum depression, postpartum OCD, postpartum anxiety, postpartum psychosis. Postpartum psychosis is the one where, if you see a woman on the news and she's drowned her kids, or she killed herself, or she killed herself and the baby, that was postpartum psychosis. It's very rare, happens like 2 in a million, something like that. It's very rare, but very dangerous. Postpartum depression is like depression, but it comes after the baby is born, or it can come actually during the pregnancy as well. And it's more than just the regular depression, more than just the baby blues that they say you have after the 2-week period. I know for myself, I didn't feel right, and I couldn't shake it. There was nothing I could do to get rid of it. And it combined with the anxiety and the OCD, my body was tired, but my brain wouldn't shut off. And so it made it very difficult, to do everyday life. Postpartum OCD is where you have thoughts of harming the child. Some women have thoughts of actually sexually molesting their child, but they know that that's wrong. With psychosis, you actually snap from reality and you think those are good things. With OCD, you realize that it's wrong, but you can't stop the thoughts. And they're just repetitive over and over, day in, day out, thoughts of harming them. And so, like I said, it makes it very hard to function in your everyday life. And those can look like the regular, thoughts of drowning them, stabbing them. You may think of pushing them into traffic. It looks very different. And research actually shows that postpartum, you can have it from anywhere from the time you get pregnant until your child is 4 years old. The UK did a study that showed that a lot of women, when their child turned 4, it actually came back because it's such a milestone age. And which I just thought was fascinating, sad, but fascinating, because doctors tend to stop checkups after like a year, and a woman could have symptoms way after that. And so I think it's great that they've come along that way. And so, yeah, for me, it started, I'd say in the hospital, thinking about it. I remember a nurse came in and she said that you might cry thinking about, this beautiful creature you made. And I remember, thinking, wow, she was right. Like, I couldn't get my emotions together. And so after about a month, I remember talking to a coworker at the time, and she had been struggling that way. She said, yeah, you need to go get checked out. Something's wrong. And so I did. And, yeah, it ultimately, we ended up landing in a shelter. I got evicted. And so we had to go to a shelter. And then from there, I ended up moving back with my mom and her husband because I wasn't in the mentality to be able to provide for them, the way they needed. And so, yeah.
And I can't imagine how difficult and even frustrating that may be to kind of have these emotions and feelings, but not really be able to say why. Especially, sometimes I know I've talked to other mothers who have experienced this, and it's like a feeling of guilt because it's a time when you should be like, happy or joyful, but you're not, like you said, you're not able to really control what it is that you're feeling. You're not choosing that feeling. So I think that it's really important that conversations like this are had so that other mothers know that, hey, this is not, it's not just you. You are not the only person who is experiencing this. And so you also brought up the church as well. And me being a believer, I have seen this firsthand where, it's kind of like we feel that we can pray certain things off, but we sometimes can forget that God also provides resources for us. So God, has certain people as a therapist or a counselor or a doctor, so that we can use these resources, and it doesn't make us any less saved or any less holy or like we don't have any faith because we tap into them. And so what has been some of your experiences personally, in the church while you were going through the postpartum?
I was very lucky. My church was very supportive. I can't say that I actually said much about it. I know when I had my first two, I wasn't active in the church at that time. I knew God, but I wasn't living for him at that time. And with my third one, my husband and I were active in the church. And I can't remember saying much about it. I remember struggling, a little bit, but because it wasn't as bad, I didn't feel like the need to bring it up. It wasn't actually until our fourth child, my fourth biological child, that it was ever mentioned. And I didn't have anything with her. She was just a blessing to be pregnant with, and I didn't have any kind of symptoms and she was my girl. I had waited for a biological girl, and so the pregnancy with her was really great. But it wasn't until her and the baptizing, she was getting dedicated, that I actually gave a testimony about it. That was the first time I spoke about it. But I never went to anybody and said, hey, listen, these are the thoughts that I'm having. I'll never forget, though, the one time, and I tell this story a lot, and it always makes me want to tear up. But I was walking with our youngest son, my youngest biological son. We were walking to the store, and he was old enough to talk. So he was probably about 2 or 3. And I remember we were going over the bridge, and I looked at the water, and something said, throw him in. And I remember he looked up at me, and he said, Mommy, throw me in there. And I just knew, that even though I hadn't reached out to anybody, God was hearing me, because what in the world makes a 2-year-old baby say that, And so I didn't talk about it much, but I knew God, he was hearing me. And now I'm able to, speak about it freely within the ministry and to really raise awareness. And I've done, different YouTubes, and the pastor's wife at my local church, she does a women's conference every year. And I actually spoke about it last year. And so that was really great. But I do find that when I do mention it, and I'm at the point now in life where I can kind of laugh about it, you know, and I can make jokes like, oh, I'm going to hurt these kids. And I don't mean it, you know, like every parent. But I do find that sometimes people kind of look at me like knowing my story. They'll kind of look at me kind of sideways, like, you know, or if I bring it up just in conversation, it's not shunned, but it's not really embraced either, you know? And so I think it does. It makes people nervous to think about conditions like that. And if you haven't experienced it, then I can understand how it would sound crazy, you know, but God is a healer. And, you know, if you believe that, and like you said, you know, he gives you resources, he gives you therapists, he gives you counselors, he gives you medications, you know, that wisdom comes from him. And if we can trust him for wisdom for the cars that we drive and the books that we read, you know, a man printed the Bible out. So, you know, if we can trust him for that, surely we can trust him for our mental health and the healing that can come with all the resources.
I love that. And I think it's so important, like you said, to trust him, and to also kind of be able to live your truth and tell your story to be able to inspire and help other people. So what do you think are some common misconceptions about postpartum for people who are not educated and don't know, and some of the misconceptions you've kind of have to overcome or educate people about with your story?
That the woman is crazy, I think, would be the number one thing. You know, unless she's in a state of psychosis, she knows there's a problem. She has, you know, full clarity of the fact that something is not right. And also, I think that society has made motherhood just this amazing, glorious thing. And it is, right? Like, I love my kids. I can't imagine my life without them. But there's so much that's left out of the actual process of being a mother, you know, the changes your body goes through, your mind goes through, you know, and then after the birth and still all the hormones that you're dealing with. And so I think the idea that a woman's just supposed to have a baby and she's just supposed to bond with this baby and just, you know, swoon over this child every time. And that's just not reality, especially in this day and age. Right now, we're in a pandemic. You know, to have a baby right now, I can't imagine. God bless those women, because I have no idea how I would do it, you know, to not have anybody in the room or to only have one person or to not be able to be near the child because maybe you were exposed to COVID. I can't imagine. And so the misconception that motherhood is just automatically a glorious thing and you automatically bond with your baby, I think that really needs to, you know, to be shattered. And the idea that she doesn't feel like she's wrong or that she, you know, she has all the support she needs. Oftentimes in this place, you feel very alone, you know, and it doesn't matter how many people are in the room. If none of them understand what you're going through in that moment, and even if they do, you know, it's like one of those things where unless you've been through it, you can't get it. You know, you just can't. And so people have to realize that she doesn't want to feel that way. And that, you know, instead of judging, which people often do, especially within the Christian community, within the church, you know, they need to embrace her where she's at and understand that anything you think about her or the craziness that you think, she's thinking it too. And 10 times more than you, because it's her child that she's not able to bond with. Or it's her child that she's having these thoughts about. And so just really embracing her where she's at, letting her know that she isn't alone and that it'll be okay.
Yeah, I love that. And I think this is so important because at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of us, we go through different struggles. And so it's the ability to be able to talk about them, to educate people. And that's what I love about what you are doing. You know, you're able to say, hey, I experienced this. Now let me turn around and help somebody else who may be going through that. And what was really that turning point for you? What made you say, okay, now I need to inform other people and help them? Because there are a lot of us who go through things and we just go through them and then we're about our business. Everyone doesn't always turn around and say, I know other people are dealing with this too. So what was that turning point for you to say, hey, I'm going to kind of focus on this, and also the mental health, awareness of children?
Well, for me, it was definitely after having our third son, and just with our fourth one, and the process of having her. And it was just so easy. And, the pregnancy was great. And I just thought, I don't believe we go through anything for no reason. I believe that God uses everything, the slightest little thing that maybe ruined our day. I believe he can use that. And so for me, if I don't tell the story, if I don't get it out there, then it will have been wasted. And in my mind, I thought I couldn't have gone through all that hell for no reason. Like I remember waking up at 2:00 in the morning one time, and the first thing I thought was, oh my gosh, I hope I didn't strangle them with the belt. And to have those thoughts, to not get it out there, to not say, hey, listen, I know what you're going through, would be a waste of the whole thing. And I can't just let that happen. And the same thing with children and mental health, seeing my kids go through what they've gone through. And not only that, but the system and the way that it's set up, there's, especially like within the minority community, mental health is still something that the minority community needs to get a hold of and to really embrace, and raise awareness about. And so really sticking up for them and saying, listen, I understand that you don't know what this is like, but this is the problem, and really being their advocate and defending them. I can't raise them the way you did. A lot of the older saints, the older generation, whoop them or, beat them. Like, okay, that may have worked then, but this isn't, going to work now. And so really just not wasting anything. Like I said, even with my children, not wasting their stories. And they've been through some stories for their young ages. And I want them to know that, that to use that, God doesn't waste anything. He will use all of it for his glory.
And he definitely does, always does. And it's up to us to, be bold enough to speak about those things, and to not be shameful, or to not be worried about what other people are going to think. Because for every person that's sitting there pointing a finger like, oh my goodness, there's another person who was there saying, I needed to hear this. I've been struggling with this. And that is so important. And I love that you said how you have to advocate for your children, because children especially, I am a youth advocate, so I completely understand that. And children especially, they don't always have the voice or even the words to get out the things that they need to say. And then on top of that, they may not understand or be able to comprehend what they are experiencing. And so it's important for them to have somebody in their life who can, on their behalf, say, no, my child isn't just misbehaved. They're going through this. No, they're not just bad, or whatever label, often gets put on children before somebody may realize and say, hey, it's something deeper than just a child misbehaving. Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to ask you, with everything that you have going on in your life, how do you navigate that? So you navigate your own feelings and your emotions, but how did you start to navigate when you realized you had to advocate for your children?
Oh, that's a great question. It was really a matter of, if you don't, it's not going to end well. My oldest, so I have 2 bonus children in addition to my 4 biological ones. And my oldest bonus child, he's 22 now. When my husband and I met, he was 10, and he had a lot of behavioral issues, a lot of, mental health issues. And I remember thinking, oh my God, like, what are you doing to me? Like, I don't know, Lord, what you think is going to happen here. But I can say, honestly, just in getting to know him and sticking up for him and being his advocate, because I don't know, something about boys, even when they're not biologically yours, there's something about them that you just want to nurture, and I was just able to tell that he just wanted to be loved. He had been through a lot, and he just wanted to be loved, and he wanted someone to believe in him. and and I remember him testing me, how far can I push her? Is she going to stay? And so just really, ensuring that he would be safe for himself. And I had two, small children at the time, making sure that he was going to be safe around my children. I didn't want to put them at risk. And so I remember saying to my husband, we've got, can we please get him some help? And so his mother and I actually took him to his first evaluation for mental health services. And it definitely helped raise awareness. I don't know that it totally healed the problem, but it definitely helped him to know that there was somebody out there who cared, and I think that in itself says a lot. Just letting them know, listen, I understand that you're going through things, I understand that you're having feelings and thoughts, I'm here, I care, because who doesn't want to, be cared about? Who doesn't want to know that their feelings are being acknowledged no matter what they are, and so my kids really made it where I had to advocate for them because they're my kids and I love them. And not only that, but because their future depends on it, and I can't, they're my kids. I can't see them fail. So.
I love that. That's truly beautiful. And I thank you so much for sharing just a small part of your story and being so transparent, because I know that, people don't meet for no reason. Conversations don't happen just ironically. And so I know that somebody specifically is listening to this that needed to hear your story, that needed to be encouraged and know that it is okay to keep going. And I wanted to ask if you could just take a minute or two and speak to that person who is listening. If you could encourage them, whether they are a mother of a child that is struggling with a mental illness, whether they are struggling with some type of mental illness themselves, or anything that you've talked about today, if you could just take a minute or two and encourage them and let them know to keep going.
Absolutely. So to whoever is struggling today, whether it be mental health, whether your children are struggling with mental health, whether you're struggling with postpartum, I would just say first and foremost that God loves you. Jesus loves you. He cares about your mental health as much as he cares about your spiritual health. He cares about your soul, your emotions. He wants you healed completely and totally. And so I would encourage you to reach out to a local church. And in addition to that, reach out to a local therapist, mental health center, guidance counselor, anybody who specializes in the mental health services. If you don't know where to start, PSI, Postpartum Support International, is great for women and men going through postpartum. NAMI is another great resource. They have wonderful resources for every different kind of mental health you can imagine, mental health disorder you can imagine. And I would just say, don't give up. Like I said, God doesn't waste anything. And there's nobody could have told me 14 years ago that I would be where I am now. It felt like this cave that I just couldn't see the end of. There was no light. I didn't think I would ever get out of it. But God is a healer and he is a protector. And if you can call out to him, if you don't know him, call out to him. He will meet you where you are. You don't have to be in the church. You don't have to be perfect. He will meet you where you are, and he will do a complete work in you. And so I just encourage you to press on, to know that you are loved, to know there are people out there. Reach out to your friends, your family, find the safe person and tell them the truth. Be open about your truth. Speak your truth. Healing can start when we're open about our truth. And so keep going, keep going.
Thank you so much, Amber. It has been a true joy to have you on my platform today. Thank you for sharing, for being so encouraging, and for reminding all of us that it does not matter what battles we are facing, that we always have God, that we always have resources. And on top of that, that our story is important and that it matters. That is the whole reason why I created this platform, is for conversations like this so that people can say, hey, I am not alone and there is something that I can do. And most importantly, that there's someone, not only just people, but God, that we can turn to when we are truly struggling. And he's going to use our stories like he has used yours. I pray that God continues to use your story and place you in front of the people who are supposed to hear you, because you are truly amazing. And I thank you so much again. It has been a true honor to have you on my platform.
Oh, thank you for having me. God bless you. Keep doing what you're doing. It was so great to be here.
Thank you. And I want to thank everybody for listening to another episode of Unmute Your Mic. As always, you can find us at unmuteyourmic.org. I'm also going to put all of Amber's information down below, as well as some resources for some of the topics that we talked about today. So if you're watching us live on YouTube or Facebook, it will be all down below. If you are listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can go to unmuteyourmic.org and go to our show notes. There you'll learn more about Amber. You'll learn more about the topic today, as well as some resources. So please, please, please do not feel like you are alone or you are struggling. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to Amber or anybody else in your community. But most importantly, you can reach out to God. Don't forget to be bold, be heard, and unmute your mic. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for tuning in to Unmute Your Mic. Be sure to tune in next time when Jessica takes her mic off mute as she continues her journey to find stories that inspire and uplift our communities.